In 1962, John Steinbeck joined the small pool of American authors who had won the Nobel Prize for Literature. In doing so, he was recognized for his great social perception and contribution to American society through his best-selling novels such as Tortilla Flat, The Winter of Our Discontent, and East of Eden.
John Steinbeck appeals to the everyday American by portraying characters who are caught in the internal struggles of ordinary conflicts.
The Winter of Our Discontent explores the traditional American dream by following Ethan Hawley, who strives to attain that dream, from the perfect family to the societal status that comes with it. As seen in Steinbeck's novels, above all else is the desire for material wealth and status, which Ethan will eventually sacrifice the integrity he hoped to instill in his children in order to achieve that. Ethan first presents the importance of wealth in the American dream when telling his wife that he can't keep his head up in town because any gentleman without money is just a bum. As the desire for money can often be associated with a happy life, no dream can be complete without societal status and wealth. Therefore, without money to provide his family with, Ethan himself will never feel complete. Ethan is seen by all in society as an honest man who could do no harm. However, this struggle to find meaning and purpose in his life causes Ethan to forfeit his upstanding integrity and moral status in order to achieve his overarching goal of the American dream. After developing a plan to gain back his riches, he states, "What I had done and planned to do was undertaken with full knowledge that it was foreign to me, but necessary as a stirrup is to mount a horse." Ethan views this action, the surrender of the values and morals he had always been known for despite the troubles, to be a necessary one. His inner conflict between his selfish desires and the values he wanted to teach his children only end up tearing him farther away from his family as he eventually attempts suicide. After cheating his childhood friend out of everything he owned, turning his boss in, and attempting to rob a bank, Ethan comes to the realization that what he once yearned for, and the internal conflict that came with, was not the person he wanted to become, and was only leading him to a more desolate place than before, free from the American dream altogether.
Tortilla Flat tells the story of a group of Spanish-American men called Paisanos who live in a poor community in Monterey, California. To try and combat this poverty, the men come together and rent their friend Danny's newly acquired home. Thus, Steinbeck conveys the American dream as the ability to gain both status and wealth. However, in the novel, characters are caught between the selfish desire for momentary joy and unrewarding rational spending. This is exemplified in the presenter of Steinbeck's Nobel Prize when he claims that Steinbeck's work often revolves around the craving for money contrasted by the simple joy of life. In Tortilla Flat, this inner conflict is most clearly seen in the character Kalan, who was the first man who began to rent out Danny's home. On his way to give Danny the money he owes for rent, he finds himself wanting to use his money instead to buy wine. Because of this, he is able to justify his possibly immoral thoughts because he states that if I give him hard money, it does not express how warmly I feel towards my friend. Thus, even though Kalan knows the right thing to do would be to pay Danny the money he owes, he is instead able to convince himself that his selfish desires have moral justification. As the book continues, Danny becomes unhappy with the wealth he has accumulated and longs for the times when he was able to be on his own and sleep in the woods. All Danny feels now is the responsibility he has towards his friends because of his house. Because of this burden, Danny ultimately turns to a life of crime. He robs all the businesses he can and sleeps in the woods every night. Eventually, in a drunken state, Danny throws himself off a cliff to his death because he wishes so badly to regain a sense of adventure and distance himself from the forced responsibility that money brought him. By depicting an inner struggle many Americans face on a daily basis and portraying the complexities of the American dream, Steinbeck was able to capture the attention of all Americans and specifically appeal to those who were oppressed.
In the novel East of Eden, Steinbeck explores the cosmic struggle in the human heart between good and evil. He finds the essential question of the human experience to be, was it good or was it evil? While evil seems to run in families, no individual is free from this struggle. Because it is human nature to participate in this struggle, each individual must combat for him or herself, so no progress towards goodness can be made throughout generations of life, because the struggle is reset at the beginning of each life. Although this struggle exists within the human heart constantly, Steinbeck's novel asserts that redemption comes through embracing the free will to choose good in the midst of this internal war. Steinbeck introduces many characters throughout his novel who are trapped in a cycle between good and evil. Cal, son of Kathy, believes that he has inherited his mother's evil nature and is incapable of achieving morality. This back and forth movement between good and evil drives his life. One moment he was dedicated and pure and devoted, the next he wallowed in filth, and the next he groveled in shame and emerged rededicated. Cal wondered if he is cursed to follow in his mother's footsteps, but unlike his mother, he strives to learn about himself and fights against the evil within. The inescapable darkness and corruption of evil is epitomized in the character of Kathy. The battle between good and evil finds resolution when free will is understood. Don't you see? The American Standard Translation orders men to triumph over sin, and you call sin ignorance. The Hebrew word, the word timshel, thou mayest, that gives a choice. It may be the most important word in the world. That says the way is open. In other words, God gave Cain the opportunity to defeat the evil in himself and his family lineage through personal choice. At the end of the novel, Cal learns it is his free will, not his evil nature or genetics, that determines his choices. He can choose to do good, and in doing so break the bonds that tie him to evil. Because he can choose, he is not fated to live as a slave to his evil nature or under the curse of his parentage. Steinbeck is able to reach all Americans by portraying the simple and expected battle in which all people experience through his work East of Eden.
While it can be justified that many authors deserve the Nobel Prize, John Steinbeck became an obvious choice in 1962 when he was able to appeal to everyday Americans. In many of his novels, characters are caught in internal struggles surrounding the American experience. Whether it had to do with money or the fundamental differences between good and evil, Steinbeck was able to capture the heart of the American public and ultimately have the greatest benefit on mankind.